We have a week 4 litter update for our puppies from the Pacific Coast Confections litter. These little guys are 4 weeks old, and in today's video we're going to give you an update about what's been happening the past week with the puppies. We're going to talk a little bit about coccidia and generally what parasites are like for dogs, and then we're going to move on to nutrition. Hi, I'm Claire from Van Isle Labradoodles, and as you can tell from my voice, I am not feeling 100%, so please excuse me for that. These guys are doing really nicely. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is we have another litter who's just about 4 days older than these puppies, and that's the Jingle Paws litter. And those puppies are doing things at a completely different pace than these puppies. And what's the reason for that? It's just how it is. Partially, it's because these puppies are smaller. So the Jingle Paws puppies are already eating not just pablum and goat's milk, but they've started eating a regular raw food. These guys haven't even started on their pablum yet. And they're old enough, and Posey wouldn't mind if we would get on with it, but they're just not quite ready. And this is what I'm always talking about when I say it's important to look at the dog in front of you, in this case the puppies in front of us, and respond appropriately for them. These little ones are just a little bit too small still. They're just not quite ready to move ahead over into the eating stage. So there's no point in us introducing it to them, and all they're going to do is sit in it and roll in it and get it all over themselves. We'll figure out when they're ready. So how do we know when they're ready? Usually you can tell because they keep going back to Posey over and over and don't seem to be getting satisfied in terms with how much nutrition she's able to offer them from the milk bar. Posey also will tell us because she'll start to fuss around when it's time to nurse. She won't want to sit still with them, and she'll keep looking at us and communicating like, hey, are you going to help me out here, or what's going on? So far Posey has been fine with them. She hasn't told us that she's really anxious to quit feeding them. She does get up a few more times when she's feeding them than normal, but she isn't really annoyed about it. So today's Saturday. I'm going to guess that probably on Tuesday is when we're going to introduce food to them. I think they'll be ready for it then. I think Posey will be more aligned with that program as well. Now, one of the other things is Posey loves her puppies very dearly, and she's never in a hurry to wean them or to say goodbye to them. Most moms, sweetheart, most moms are really excited when weaning time comes and look forward to having their freedom back. Whereas Posey, even when they turn 5 weeks old and it's time to come start sleeping with us again overnight, she's never all that excited about that development. She usually prefers to stay here and sleep with them almost right up until the time they go. Now, we get her to come and sleep with us so that we can start working on the puppies getting a little bit more independence. And also for the puppies who are in our Head Start program, that's when we have them sleeping overnight on their own too. So we want to be sure that we're making sure that everybody gets all full advantage of what's appropriate for them and what's right for Posey too. So now in terms of nutrition, hey, little red girl, what's the matter, babes? Oh, Posey's gonna go check and see what's the matter. Thank you, Posey. Posey's such a good mom. In terms of nutrition, what the puppies will start off eating is goat's milk along with some plain rice pablum and a little bit of pumpkin. Now, while we're talking about that, you can see Blue Collar is interacting with one of the toys. Now, last week they weren't interacting with the toys. The toys were here, but they weren't really too interested in them. Now, this week we start to see them getting more interested in them, and that's because their teeth are coming in a bit more. Now, teeth are also related to nutrition because they do need to have some teeth in order to be eating easily. But what we start off with is this goat's milk. And the reason why we use goat's milk is because it's the closest thing to mama dog milk. Dogs cannot have cow's milk. Dairy products that are from a cow for dogs are a no-no. They give them an upset stomach. It also strips all of their B vitamins out of their systems. They'll get diarrhea. So just make sure you don't give your dog any cow dairy products. Yogurt is fine, but otherwise no milk or sour cream or things like that. And then the plain rice pablum really doesn't have any nutritional value, as we know, but it's there just to provide some bulk. We want them to have something into their bodies that's not milk. And this is the most innocuous type of thing to start off with. It's very gentle on their stomach. It makes them feel full. And the other thing is it's kind of sticky, sort of like porridge. And so that helps it stay on their tongues, which helps them learn how to get it into their bodies. Because dogs don't know how to lap naturally. That's a learned behavior. So when we have something that's sticky and has some viscosity to it, then that allows it to be easier for the puppies to understand that, oh, okay, this is how I get it on my tongue and into my body. And the pumpkin is there just as a digestive support. Plain tinned pumpkin is an excellent thing to always have in your pantry. Just make sure it's not pumpkin spice pie filling, just plain old everyday pumpkin. Now sometimes it's really hard to find that in a smaller tin. You can only find it in the great big, I think they're 24 or 22 ounce tins. So if that's the case, wait till they go on sale and then buy one and then just freeze it in, you know, like a couple of tablespoons, 1 tablespoon size. You just put little dollops wrapped up in saran or something into a Ziploc and throw it in your freezer. That way you've always got some on hand. Because if your puppy or your adult dog has an upset tummy, and amazingly this product works both ways, whether they're constipated or they have diarrhea, it's a really good thing to give them. It's safe, it's gentle, and it does help their digestion. Because puppies, just like young children do, tend to get upset stomachs a little bit more easily than grown-up dogs do. But grown-up dogs do as well, and pumpkin works equally as well for them. Now, the puppies are also spending a lot more time in their crate lately. So they're starting to sleep in their crate. We'll keep these little beds here for them because they do like to hang out there during the day. Not right now, honey, okay? In a little minute. But they are already learning about the crate, and they like to go in there. Before we started the video, the puppies were all in the crate. So this is, again, just because we've let them do this naturally. So just like the pumpkin, using the goat milk, we try to do everything as naturally as we possibly can. Now, once the puppies have moved on and they've started with the pablum, then we move off on to feeding them raw food. And we'll start off mixing it with goat milk initially. We warm the goat milk up as well to make sure everything's at body temperature for them. And then from there, we'll go to just feeding them regular raw. And so maybe you were wondering, like, well, why do you feed raw food? Why on earth would you do that? Isn't it really expensive? Isn't it really complicated? Isn't it full of bacteria? Why don't we just feed kibble? So much easier. Well, there's a number of reasons. The primary reason is, yeah, your dog can survive eating kibble. Your dog can survive eating out of a dumpster, but your dog doesn't thrive. It's not the best thing for your dog. It's just like somebody can survive eating at McDonald's, A&W, Wendy's, or lean cuisine, but they aren't going to be in really good health. Our goal is for our puppies to be in the best possible health, to live as long as possible, and to have as few medical issues as we can possibly arrange. And so that's done with raw food. You may not know this, but when you get a bag of kibble, the primary money, the most investment in the bag of kibble is in the bag. It's in the packaging. And that's because the bag is full of synthetics and chemicals that keep the fats from going rancid and allow the food to have an extraordinarily long shelf life. That's why if you go buy a bag of kibble today, its expiry date is probably more than a year from now. And that's because it's not refrigerated, it's not frozen, it's just on a shelf. And so it has to have something to keep it stable and to stop the fats from going off. And that's all the chemicals that are contained in the bag. So you can imagine all of that that's required for that to happen is touching your dog's food, and that's going in their body. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that that's probably not ideal. Also, the rest of the money that's spent on the bag is on marketing with lots of incorrect phraseology. Now, this holds true for raw food as well. Almost all dog food says complete, balanced, perfect for this, blah, 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 and almost none of it is. Many of the dog foods that you see, raw food products, say complete and balanced, and you think, oh, that's great. But so does the bag of kibble. And if you compare the two lists of ingredients side by side, you'll see that the minerals and the vitamins actually are the same. They're artificial. It's a synthetic cocktail. And a lot of raw food manufacturers buy this same synthetic cocktail that is used in kibble. It's mass produced, it's completely artificial, it's from sources that are not local, it's produced overseas, and it's all the same little magic powder, if you will, that goes into either kibble or raw food. It's very hard to find foods that are actually complete and balanced naturally. And what that means is the dog is getting everything that they need from the food that is in the bag or in the package if it's a frozen raw product. So in your purchase contract, if you're getting a Van Isle Doodle, you'll see there's a list of approved foods. And all those approved foods, except for Robble, do get all of their complete and balanced nature from the food. Now, the ones that we like best are one American product that's called Steve's and one Canadian product that is called Puppy Love. Both of those products get everything naturally just from the food. And Steve's has everything is organic, the bag is specially made so it's compostable. They use proteins from farmers that practice humane methods and so on and so forth. They're a really great company. They are also very expensive. It's expensive in the first place because they do go to all these extra efforts, but it's also expensive for us because it's American and we have to pay not only the importation and shipping costs, but we have to pay the exchange on the Canadian dollar. So it's not really a practical choice for most of us. I would love to feed my dogs just that every day, all day, but first of all, they get bored, and second of all, it's beyond my budget. So Puppy Love is Canadian, also a really great product. The only difference there is, yes, the bag can be recycled, but it's not compostable. The fruits and vegetables are not organic, and they're not buying their proteins from farmers that necessarily practice humane farming methods. Maybe they do, maybe they don't, but they're not certified in that way. So those are really the only differences. And Puppy Love is much more budget friendly. A Puppy Love only comes in freeze-dried. When your puppies from this litter go home, they may or they may not be willing to eat freeze-dried. Sometimes puppies that are smaller take a couple of months before they decide that freeze-dried is something that they're really keen on. When we send you home, we will prepare a food box for you with complete and full instructions, and we'll have it so that it is whatever your puppy is enjoying eating, because our primary goal will be to have your puppy get into a good eating habit. Raw food is not more expensive than kibble. Over the years, it's actually less expensive because you have so many fewer bills. You don't have a lot of things with the teeth. You don't have a lot of stress on the organs. So when a dog eats kibble, they require a huge amount of water to process it because it's basically cereal that they're eating. So they need to have a liquid in order for any amount of bioavailability to come out of what's in there. And that puts a huge stress on all of their organs. When your dog eats a raw food diet, you'll notice that they hardly drink at all. And that's because they're getting all of our hydration needs met just by virtue of what they're eating. You'll also find that that means that there's very little stress on their internal organs. They go to the bathroom much less frequently, and when they do go, it's a lot less, and it even smells a little bit less worse. I won't say better, because that would be an exaggeration. So all of that is just by virtue of the fact that your dog's system's not being overtaxed. It's kind of like when you drink beer. Beer's great if you like beer, but when you drink beer, you have to go to the bathroom all the time. And that's a lot of work on your kidneys. And that's why alcohol is hard on your body. Beer is probably the most extreme example of drinking something that makes you have to go to the bathroom a lot. So it's very similar. Kind of a funny analogy, I know, but you get the idea of what it is I'm trying to explain to you there. The other thing that's really helpful about the raw food when you have a breed like this is they tend to prefer it. ALDs tend to be picky eaters, so if you get them something they like, it makes it a lot easier to get them into a nice, good, solid eating routine. So that's just a little bit on nutrition there. Like I said, we will prepare a food box for you. Our sister business, Curated Canines, will be where the food box comes from. So you just pick it up here when you pick up your puppy, and then we deliver on the island for free, and we'll have all the information on that later on. But every puppy's box will be curated specifically for them. And then, as I said, we'll give you the whole instructions, how to do everything, and it's really much easier than you would ever imagine. And if you buy a bag of kibble these days, you have to keep in mind, you have to feed about 3 times as much more kibble as you do raw. So really it's not that much more in terms of the cost. Excuse me. Now the other thing I want to just talk about briefly today is coccidia. What the heck is that? Coccidia is a parasite. It is found in the feces of rabbits, deer, several other animals. Most adult dogs, about 35 to 40% of the adult dog population, have coccidia at all times. It doesn't present any problem to them. It's something that's very easy for dogs to manage. If people had it, they'd be sick, but for dogs, it's not something that impacts them. How do dogs get coccidia? They might eat rabbit poop or deer poop because goodness knows to them that's a delicacy, but they love it. Or it could simply be they've walked across it, it's on their paws, they lick their paws. We live in a rural location, we have a lot of rabbits. When it's the rainy season like it is right now on Vancouver Island, that poop tends to be spread out in a greater area. And the mama dogs, when they're out back, they'll step in it and the puppies can be exposed to it. So this past week, little orange collar got coccidia. So how do we know he had coccidia? Well, the first thing he was doing was he was off by himself. He didn't want to eat and he was having a little bit of shivers. Usually what we see is diarrhea and a wet bum, but he didn't have a wet bum. He did have a loose stool, that's for sure. And there's a certain smell that goes with coccidia. His was not particularly strong, but it was definitely evident. So Reynolds noticed when he was in here that he was off by himself and that he was looking a little bit like he wasn't feeling his normal self. So we have a couple of different options with coccidia. One of them is just a very gentle, broad spectrum and very safe antibiotic called Clavamox. Dogs get it all the time for a variety of things. And for puppies, it comes in a special liquid format. And the other thing is a special concoction that's a compounded product that is a series of sulfa drugs. So we have had coccidia multiple times because we have all these rabbits. It's something that's quite common for us. So we have some on hand. So we treated him for 5 nights. It's just a liquid, and the first time when we treated him it was about 10:30 at night, and when we came back at 7 in the morning he was completely back to normal. So you'll notice this week his weight gain is not very much. In fact, this week he is the smallest puppy. Green is not the smallest, or yellow rather, is not the smallest for the first time. And that's simply by virtue of the fact that he was sick. But he's completely fine. He's totally back to normal. It wasn't even 12 hours that he wasn't feeling well. Does this have any long-term impact on him? The only thing it will do is probably make him a little bit more immune and resistant to coccidia as an adult, which is a good thing. So nothing particular to worry about. Dogs do get parasites. These dogs have just been wormed again. Puppies have worms because their moms have worms. Their moms have worms because female dogs are born with a dormant worm that only becomes active when they're pregnant. So we treat mom and we treat the puppies at weeks 2, 4, 6, and 7. We use one dewormer for the first few times and then a different one for the last time, just to be sure we get everything. And we'll be sure that they get a fecal analysis done before they go home to you, so that you'll know they're going home and they're completely fine. Once that's done, usually depends on what's happening with your dog. Raw-fed dogs tend to get less worms than kibble-fed dogs. Our dogs get a fecal done every year, as you'll want to do for your puppy when they go for their annual checkup at your vet. But our dogs have never come back with anything. Yeah, they do have coccidia present, but it's not bothering them. They're asymptomatic, so there's nothing that needs to be done for that because they're adults now. Now Peanut is older. Peanut is going to be 11 in 2025, so she's a geriatric now. And once you get back into that geriatric stage, your immune system starts to become a little less robust. So it's possible that Peanut might have a time where she'll need to be treated for coccidia. Peanut is a dog who enjoys eating poop. It is one of her favorite parts of her day. She finds it to be quite a delicacy, and she loves the fact that we live where there's all these rabbits and deer. Now, when we move to our new location, it's still somewhat rural, but not as much as here. I'm sure we'll still have lots of rabbits. I don't know if we'll have as many deer, so I'm not sure. Perhaps she's going to feel like she's starving to death. But because she is always interacting with wildlife, it's quite possible that we may have to treat her once a year or something. You can be sure if there's something unusual, Peanut will run into it. She's a bit of a magnet for that type of thing. So now let's give you a little bit of an update on the puppies now that they're all conked out. They've had their little playtime. They are getting to be where they play for a little bit longer at a time, but it's still fairly short-lived, as they do get tired quickly. And they are doing a little bit better with peeing away from their bed, although we didn't change over here intentionally in front of the crate because I wanted you to see that they are still peeing right in front of the crate. It means that they're not quite ready to have their area expanded yet. What I want to see is pee all far away from the bed and the crate before we move to making their area bigger, because once we make it bigger, then we start reducing the number of pee pads and teaching them this is where you go, this is where you go, and it gets smaller and smaller. So Joya's puppies are there. They've already got that all sorted out. Again, they're just bigger, that's all, and they are a little bit older. These guys will be caught up in no time. But for now, they're still just going right out the door and peeing. So before we make any changes to their actual area, I want to see that improve a little bit. So we'll start with Mr. Blue Collar, who's over here, and you can see just by looking at him, I think that he is the biggest puppy, although this week we have a tie, and the other biggest puppy is right beside him, so it's very handy. Mr. Blue and Mr. Green are the two biggest puppies, and it's quite easy to see if we put them side by side here. If Green doesn't mind me rearranging his sleeping area, you can see these are nice, fully filled out puppies here. Whereas Orange, who is our smallest puppy this week, so he doesn't look like he's particularly smaller, but you can definitely tell when you pick him up, he's quite light this week. And that's just, as I said, because he was not feeling well for a while there. So we'll start with Mr. Blue, our very handsome party boy here. Hi, honey. How pretty are you? I guess you're handsome, not pretty, right? Hi, how you doing? Look at you, good looking. This little guy is our little caramel party boy, just the most handsome fellow. And this week he's coming in at 1.39 kilograms. And this week we're starting to see some personalities. And Mr. Blue this week is definitely Mr. Outgoing. He's the one who started playing with the toys first. He's got the most teeth. And he is really just right on the top of the scale here for this litter in terms of his development. Then we have Yellow Collar. Sorry. Oops, Yellow is in the crate. Yellow is 1.2. I'm going to go through this fast because I'm going to lose my talking here. Red is here at 1.35. Green is 1.39. And orange is 1.15. I'm going to let everybody go and not have to listen to my coughing. And we thank you so much for watching and hope we'll see you again next week.